Okay, we're starting at the new Mishnah. Now I'm getting it right. We're starting at the new Mishnah on the bottom of Nun Daled Amud Beis. Welcome everyone. I could welcome in A.B. Spry, Irving Fishbaum, Ben Zion Cohn, Mo Kushner, Saba, Shelley Zeitlin, Rebel Yayafi, Eddie Chazan, Yitzi Fuchs, Dr. Guy, Rabbi Kranz, Shimon Klein, Yisrael Fisher, Yitzi Muller, Barry Cement, Dr. Block, Michal, Nachman Chaplin, Naftali Jablin, Moshe Lehman, Ilya Shutman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Chaim Braun, Abe Arbach, and David Helfgat, here in Shul, Berish Gelsiman, Gedalia Engel, Michal Avram, Danny Vogel, and Ruvain Shanit, and Herschel. The Mishnah tells us, Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur. Now, Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, as I said, all shlamim are kachim kalim, except for the shlamim that are offered on Shavuos, the kifsei atzeres, they are kachim. So the Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, the communal peace offerings, v'ashamais, and the guilt offerings. There's 5 guilt offerings. Elu hein, ashamas. The following are the guilt offerings. Oshim gezelis, that's if Barry steals or has a lost article and claims that he doesn't have it, and he swears, and then he confesses, so he pays, he adds a 5th, and he brings an Oshim Gezelis. Oshim Me'ilas, that's if Barry commits trespass and benefits from Me'ilah Shava Pruta, he has to bring an Oshim Me'ilas. Oshim Shifcha Charufa, now this is, let's say, you have a Eved Ivri who is allowed to be with a Shifcha Kananis. That's a special arrangement for an Eved Ivri. So if the Eved Ivri is betrothed to a Shifcha Kananis, now it's not really a marriage because it can't be a marriage. If somebody, Chatzkel, sleeps with this Shifcha Charufa, so he would have to bring an Oshim Shifcha Charufa. Oshim Nazir is if a Nazir, while he's counting his 30 days, becomes Tomei, so then he loses the days that he counted. He has to shave, and he has to bring an Oshim Nazir. An Oshim Mitzayra is an Oshim brought in the purification process of the leper. And an Oshim Toli, this is a person who had 2 pieces of meat. One was chaylev, one was kosher. He ate one of them. If he wouldn't know that he ate the chaylev, he would bring a chatas. Since he doesn't know, he brings an Oshim Toli. Now, all of these karbanas shchitas and betzafen, the shchita is in the north, like all kachei kachim. V'kibel damam b'klei shavis betzafen, you have to catch the blood in the klei shavis on the north. V'damaton shtei matan shein arba, the blood is placed again on 2 diagonal corners, on the northeastern corner and the southwestern corner. V'nechol lefnim and aklam, since it's kachei kachim, it has to be eaten in the azara. Only lezichrei kuna by male kohanim. Lekol machal, it could be prepared in any way. Leyayim v'layla, for 1 day and 1 night at chatzais, until chatzais. Says the Gemara as we start the top of Nun Hey Amud Aleph. Minol on the Beit Tzafin. How do we know that it needs the north? The Tani Rabba Bar Rav Chanan Kamei de Rava, because Rabba Bar Rav Chanan says in front of Rava, it says Asisim Sir Izim Echad Lechatas. It says that you should make a Sir Izim Echad Lechatas, Ushnei Kavasim Leishana Lezevach Shlam. Those are the Shalmei Tzibur. So it puts Shlomim in juxtaposition to the Chatas. Ma Chatas B'tzafin. So Af Shalmei Tzibur, the 2 lambs of Shavuos, is B'tzafin. Oh, there's a problem. You're trying to pull a quick one on us. How do you know Chatas is Tzafin? We know it because from Oila. So that means Chatas is a dover that was learned out with a Hekesh, then how could you then teach it with another Hekesh? V'chi Chatas, Eichan Lamda, where do we know the Chatas is Tzafin? Lamda Me'ayla, from the Ayla. Dava alam be'ekish, something that we learned from one juxtaposition. Chayzim alam be'ekish, can we convey with a second juxtaposition? Scratch that. Ela miditani ramari breid Rav Kahana. It says al iloyseichem v'al zivchei shalmeichem, for your burnt offering and for your peace offerings. Ma oila kache kachim, just like the oila is a kache kachim. Av zivchei shalmei tzibur, so the communal shlamim is also kache kachim. And ma oila b'tzafin, just like the oila is in the north. Av zivchei shalmei tzibur, so also the lambs of Shavuos is b'tzafin. Says the Gemara, Elahekesha kama lamai asa. So why is shlamim juxtaposed to chatas? It's coming to tell you ki chatas. Ma chatas ein nechelas ela zichrei kahuna. Just like the chatas can only be eaten by male kahanim, af zichrei shalmei tzibur. So also the kifsei atzeres can only be eaten with zichrei kahuna. Says the Gemara, Amalei Abaya ihachi gabe ayel nazir, the ram of the nazir. Dichsiv v'hikriv es karbono la'Hashem keves ben shnasei samim echad la'ayla v'kivsa achas ben shnasa tamima l'chatis v'ayel echad tamim l'shlamim. Oh, this is a problem. In the purification ceremony of the Nazir, after he successfully finishes his Naziris, he has to bring 3 karbonos. A chatas, an ayla, and a shlamim. And there the shlamim is juxtaposed to the chatas. Hachanami nema the hikish hakas of the chatas, that we compare the ayel nazir to the chatas. Ma chatas ein nechelas ala zichrei kahuna. Just like the chatas of the nazir is only eaten for zichrei kahuna, af ayel nazir, so also the ram of the nazir nami ein nechel ala zichrei kahuna, which is not the case, because the ayel of the nazir is actually kachei kalim, and it's eaten, the portion of it is eaten by Yisrael. Says what's the comparison? Since it says the kayin only takes the cooked foreleg of the ayil, that means everything else is eaten by the owners, who are Yisraelim. That implies that the rest of it is eaten by Yisrael. Says the Gemara, but maybe the Zraya B'Sheila that's eaten by Kahanim, maybe that could only be eaten by male Kahanim and not their families. The din is that it could be eaten even by their families. But Zraya B'Sheila, Mi Aloylis Achal El Zichrei Kahuna, since it's juxtaposed to Chatas, says the Gemara Kasha, that's a good Kasha. Then the Gemara says, or we could say another teretz. V'iba Yisema, by the Zraya B'Sheila, the pasuk says that it's called kodesh. It's not called kachei kachim. It says the Zraya B'Sheila is kodesh ulakayim. It doesn't call it kachei kachim. Now kachei kachim could only be eaten by zichrei kahuna, as the Gemara says, "V'iba yisema kachei ikrei, kachei kachim lo ikrei." So then why is it juxtaposed to chatas? Vel lamai hilchasa iskish. That's coming to tell me a whole different thing. You see, at a certain time, the Nazir could start drinking wine and being metame to the mason. Now we know that after he brings his shlamim, because he puts his shaved hair under the vat of the shlamim, he's allowed to already drink wine. But how do we know it's true also if he only brought his chatas, or if he only brought his ayla? That's what we learned from the Hekesh. Amar Ravashim gilach al achad mishloshtan yotza, that if he shaves after just bringing one of the karbanas, he's yaitza, it could drink wine or be metam l'meis. Now, finally, we get up to the kachim kalam. Till now, we were learning about kachim kachim. Hatoida, the Thanksgiving offering, the ayil nazir, and the ram brought by the nazir, kachim kalim. These are minor kachim. Shlitasam b'kol makom azar. It could be shechted all over the temple courtyard. V'dama ton shtei matana shein arba. Again, you have to sprinkle it on two opposite diagonal corners, the northeastern and the southwestern corners. V'necholin b'kol ha'ir. These can be eaten throughout Yerushalayim, l'kol adam, by everybody, b'kol machal, but only here we only get still l'yom v'layla ad chatzos, for the day and night until chatzos. Hamura mehem kayotze mehen, that which is removed from them, the chaz of a shoik, which is given to the Kohanim, is similar, that it could be eaten throughout the whole Yerushalayim. However, elashamurim, that which is removed, nechel l'kahanim l'nshem l'vneim l'avdeim, could be eaten by Kohanim, their wives, their children, and the servants of the Kohanim. Now, Tan Rabbanan, eschazei hatnufa, the breast of waving, the shoik hatruma, and the shank which was removed, toichlu b'makom tahar, can be eaten in a place of holiness. Now, how do we know that that place of holiness means the whole Yerushalayim? Amar Ibn Chanya, v'chi rishayim b'tumah achlan, the ones that were mentioned beforehand, the mincha and the chatas, were they eaten in a place of tumah? God forbid. They could only be eaten in the azara. So what does it mean that these are eaten b'makom tar? Elatar michlal shehu tameh. It means it could be eaten in a place that's tar, which implies that it's tameh for other people. What does that mean? Tar mitumas mitzayra. It's tar from the tumah of a mitzayra, because the mitzayra cannot be there, because the mitzayra is sent out of all three camps, and therefore the mitzayra can't be in Yerushalayim. So it's tar mitumas mitzayra, v'tamei mitumah zav, but it's allowed to have the zav. So that means that it's talking about Yerushalayim. And what is that? Zeh machane Yisrael. That's the machane Yisrael, which cannot have matzayra, but it can have a zav, and therefore it can be eaten in the entire. Yerushalayim is analogous to the machane Yisrael. Says the Gemara, "Ve'ema tor mitumah zav, v'tamei mitumas meis." Why don't you say it's tar from the tumah zav? That means that it can't have. It's an area that can't have a zav, but the tamei mitumas meis. But it allows the tumah of a mace, which is the machna leviyah, and that would be the area of the harabayis. So maybe it means that you have to eat it on the harabayis. How do we know that we could have it in the whole Yerushalayim? Amar Baya Amar Kra v'achalta moisa b'makom kodesh. You could eat it in a holy place. Now, the pasuk says about the mincha, v'achaltem osa b'makom kodesh. You have to eat the mincha in a holy place. Osa b'makom kodesh, v'lo yacheres b'makom kodesh. But the ayil nazir and the taida doesn't have to be eaten in the makom kodesh. That's in the azara. So that's akeh. That first takes it out of the machne shchina into the machne leviyah. That takes it to the abayis. Hadar ksiv b'makom tar. It adds b'makom tar. What is that coming to teach us? Apke, it says that it doesn't have to be in the harabayis, but it could be even l'machne Yisrael, even in Yerushalayim. So that's how we know it's eaten in Yerushalayim. Rava says a different drasha. Rava says, Oisa b'makom kodesh, the mincha is in the makom kodesh, v'lo yacheres b'makom kodesh. It doesn't have to be the ayil nazir, the taita doesn't have to be a makom kodesh. So that's apke legamre, that takes it out of the areas of kedusha into Yerushalayim. Hadar kasser rachmana, teichlu b'makom tar. Because apke legamre means that it doesn't have to be anywhere. It could even be eaten in Haifa, even in Eilat. But then hadar kasser rachmana, teichlu b'makom tar, to bring it back to Yerushalayim. Ayla l'machne Yisrael. Says, how do you know that it only brings it back to Machne Yisrael. Ve'ema ayla l'machne Levia. Maybe it's bringing it back that you should eat it on the Har HaBayis. Says Gemara, well, l'choda ma'alinon, we will only bring it back one level. L'tarte loy ma'alinon. Says Gemara, well, if you only bring it back one level, then when it says b'makom kodesh, oisa b'makom kodesh, and not anything else, we should only take it out one level, and we should only take it out to the Machne Levia. Iachi apuke nami mechoda mapkinan. We should only take it out one level. Mitarte loy mapkinan. And furthermore, we could never have a havamina that we could eat the toida and the ayel nazir in a lot or a chayfa, because it says lo yisucha lecho b'sharecha ksiv. So therefore, you can't have that havamina. Ela machvarta k'dabaya. It's better the way Abaya explained it. Now, Shlomim gives us tremendous latitude. We have more time to eat it. Shlomim, kachim kalim. Shlomim is minor kachim shlitasim chomakim azar. Now it doesn't have to be slaughtered in the north. It could be slaughtered in any place in the azar. You have to place it on the two diagonal corners on the northwestern corner. The northeastern corner and southwestern corner. It could be eaten throughout the city, l'kol adam, by all people, b'chol machal, in any food preparation. And here we get 2 days and the intervening night. L'shnei yomim v'layla echad, for 2 days and 1 night. Hamurim mehem kayatzibem, the portions that are removed for the kayin are similar. Elashamurim nechal l'kahanim, can be eaten by the kahanim, l'neshayim, their wives, l'vneim, their children, ulavdeim, and their servants. Now, how do we know that the shlomim could be slaughtered in any place in the Azar? So says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, Ushchatu Pesach Oyel Moed. It's slaughtered by the door of the Oyel Moed. V'shachad Oisai Lefnei Oyel Moed. We slaughter it before the Oyel Moed. V'shachad Oisai Lefnei Oyel Moed. And it says a third pasuk, you slaughter it before the Oyel Moed. So now you have 3 psukim. That comes to tell us that you could do it on the south, on the east, and the west. And you surely could do it on the north. Kal v'chaymer, l'tzafen, and you could surely do it on the north. That are not able to be done on the south, on the west, and the east. Are able to be done on the north. Surely they could do it in a din. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer says that the 3 psukim are only needed. They're needed to tell me that it has to be that it's okay on the north. Sheyachal, haloi dinu. Kachim kalim is permitted in all directions. Those directions are not allowed by the kachim because kachim can't be done on the south, the west, and the east. It could only be done on the north. So maybe for the kachim kalim, it can't be done on the north. Just like by the kachim kalim, which are done on the south, east, and west, is not allowed by the kachim. So kachim, which are done on the north, maybe the north is not allowed by kachim kalim. Talmud Leimer, Oyel Moed, it says Oyel Moed, that it could be done anywhere in the Oyel Moed, anywhere, even on the north. So the Gemara says, B'maika miflagi. What are they arguing with? So says the Gemara, Tanakama saber tlosa kroiksiv. Remember we said, it says Lefnei Oyel Moed, it says Pesach Oyel Moed, and it says again Lefnei Oyel Moed. He says there are 3 psukim. Chad legufei. One is to tell me, Dinibai Pesach Oyel Moed, like we're going to learn shortly, that if the doors of the temple are closed, you cannot shech the shlamim. So one is coming to tell you that it has to be Pesach Oyel Moed. The Hachad Lahachshut Stadim, and one is telling me that it could be done on the sides. The Chad Livsot Tzidei Stadim, and one is to disqualify the sides of sides, which means, as we'll see, that there are lishkois, there are chambers in the Azara, and you can't shecht inside one of the chambers in the Azara, even though the chamber itself has the kedusha of Azara, because it opens up into the Azara, but that's not considered anymore Pesach Oyel Moed, Lifnei Oyel Moed, because that's a side of the side. V'tzafan la yitzrikra, and north doesn't need a pasuk, because the kachim, which can't be done on the other directions, can be done on the north. So kachim kam, which can be done on all the other directions, surely is able to be done on the north. Rebbe Eliezer, he explains differently. Chad l'gufei, dinibai Pesach Oyel Moed, that it has to be done, if with the doors open. The Chad lahachshut tzafin, and one is coming to tell us that it could be done in the north. The Chad lahachshut stadim, on the other directions. The tzidei stadim, and to tell me that you can't do it in the chambers, lo yitzrikra. So the Gemara says, why does it say in one place Pesach Oyel Moed and one place Lifnei Oyel Moed? Ma'ash na'achad dichsiv Pesach Oyel Moed, or ma'ash na'asim dichsiv Lifnei Oyel Moed. Says the Gemara, Kamash Malon kid Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol. It's teaching you like Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Dam Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol, Shlamim sheshachton kaidim shepisku dalsa yisayeichel, the shlamim that are slaughtered before they open up the doors of the heichel, psulin. Shenema v'shachtu Pesach Oyel Moed. It has to be bizman shu pesuach, when the doors are open. V'lbelay bizman shu no. And we learned that also. Imanami Amar Bar Ukfa Bar Chama Amar Reb Yosi Reb Chanina. Shlamim sheshachton kaidim sheyiftechu dalsa yisayeichel. Shlamim that are slaughtered before they open up the doors of the heichel. Psulin. Shenema v'shachtu Pesach Oyel Moed, you shech by the door of the Oyel Moed, bizman shepesach ha'echel pesuach, when it's open, v'loi bizman shu no. But Marava masnu hachi, in Marava they taught the same lesson with a different language. Amar Rav Yaakov bar Acha, Amar Rav Ashi, shlamim sheshachtu kaidim sheyiftechu dalsas ha'echel, shlamim that are slaughtered before the doors are open, psulin, or b'mishkin, now by the mishkin, kaidim sheyamdu leviyim es hamishin, if they slaughtered it before they set up the mishkan, because they used to dismantle it when they traveled, if they slaughtered it before they set up the mishkan, or ul'achar sheyifreku leviyim es hamishkan, or after they dismantled it, psulim. Says the Gemara, pshita mugaf. If the doors are closed, kinol dummy. It's like it's locked. But let's say the door is open, there was just a screen there for privacy. Vilun mai, what about a screen? Amar Reb Zeira, hu atzmai ein nasa ela kepesach, it's only made like a door. In other words, it was there not to shut it, but to just provide privacy, and therefore it's considered like it's open. Now, therefore, it's considered pasuach. Goiva mai. What if there's some blockage in front of the door? There's something high in front of the door. So the Gemara says, Tashma, the Tanya Rabbi Yisrael Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Shnei pishpishin hayu bebeis hachalifos. The antechamber, there was a Kodesh Kedashim, then the Kodesh, and then there was a rectangular antechamber. And in the antechamber was the place where they stored the knives. They had cubbies for the knives. In the back of the antechamber, on the back of the two sides of the rectangle, there were two small doors. Kidei lahachshir es ha'azara kula. Because if there wouldn't be doors, then behind the antechamber, how could you shecht? It's not Pesach al Mayid. So there were two small doors in order that it should be considered Pesach al Mayid. Kedei lahachshir es ha'azara kula, in order to permit in the entire azara lachilas kachim kachim, for the eating of kachim kachim, ulashchitas kachim kalim. Now, my lav the ika kamayu shmeina, doesn't this imply that in front of these doorways there was a blockage 8 amas high, and we see that even though there's a blockage, it's not a problem. Says, well, no, that's not what it means at all. Like the government in Ushmaina, it means that the opening of these doorways were 8 amas high. But they had, again, picture the antechamber. In back of the antechamber, there was 2 small doorways, so that even behind there, you would be able to slaughter. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Pesach al Mayid. So you have now 2 other doors.
They didn't slaughter in the Azara itself? They slaughtered only in the antechamber?
Not in the antechamber. Around the perimeter of the Beis Mikdash proper, the complex, was also Azara. Not just in the front. No, the Azara was a huge temple courtyard that went around the entire Mikdash complex. Now, the front of the Azara, that's Pesach al Mayid. But behind the doorway, in the back, how is that Pesach al Mayid? It's behind the door. So therefore, they made in back of the ulam 2 small doors on either side, so that in back would also be considered Pesach al Mayid because of those back doors.
Back doors were the ulam.
Yes. That's the Beis HaChalifos. So here's a picture. See, here you have the ulam, and here you have the 2 doors in the back over here. Now, says the Gemara, Meisvei, Kala Sha'arim Shahayu Shan Goyven Esrim Amma, all the gates there were high 20 amas, V'roich Bon Esr Amma, and wide Esr Amma. So it doesn't say anything about 8 amas. Says the Gemara, those are major doors. Pispas and Shani, these are small doorways. It's not talking about the major doors. Says the Gemara, but wait a second. Even that doesn't help, because still you won't have the entire Azara Pesach al Mayid, because what about if you look at the picture in Rashi all the way in the bottom, even if you have in the back of the ulam on the 2 sides doorways, which will make the back of it, but what about the sides of the ulam, to the right and the left on the sides of the ulam? That wouldn't be Pesach al Mayid, because it wouldn't be in front of the front doors and it wouldn't be in front of the back doors. So how could you shecht on the 2 sides of the ulam itself? Says the Gemara, Va'ikat Stadim, the sides of the ulam. Says the Gemara, the Pasach Lu Bekeren Zavius. They made the door on the corner on either side, so it covered the back and also the sides. Yeah, but what about behind the Kodesh Kodashim? Behind the Kodesh Kodashim, how could you shecht? Behind the Kodesh Kodashim is not in front of the back doors of the ulam, and it's definitely not Pesach al Mayid. So how it says they could shecht b'kol makom ha'azara, but directly behind the Kodesh Kodashim, how could they shecht? Says the Gemara, achure beis hakaporos mai. What about in back of the Kodesh Kodashim? Says the Gemara, Tashma, the Amar Rami bar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, lul katan hayu achure beis hakaporos. There was a small opening in the back of the Beis HaKaparis, Kedei lahachshir es ha'azara, in order to be machshir, even the back of the azara, lachilas kachim kachim, for eating of kachim kachim, or l'shchitas kachim kalim, v'hainu d'chsiv, there were 2 guards, shnayim leparbar. Now what is the parbar? My leparbar, Amar Rabba bar Rav Shila, commander Amar klape bar. there was an opening towards the outside. In other words, towards the outside of the entire temple complex, in the back, there was an opening, so that way they were able to eat the kachei kachim even behind there, and they were able to shecht even behind, because that would also be considered to be technically Pesach Oyel Moed. Okay, Baruch Hashem, 2 blot in 1 hour and 1 minute.